And they said, it will never happen. It will bankrupt the port. We fully leased that building in 6 months. The Tech 2 office building, that one was $50 million. It's the 5-story building across the street. They trusted me a little bit more, but they said, Jim, you need to go and get 50% pre-leasing on that building. And I said, it is never going to happen.
Right.
I cannot get any pre-leasing, but you authorize this building today, and I will have it leased in a week.
Welcome to Breaking Ground SA, a RECSA podcast where we dig into real estate deals, developments, and decision makers shaping San Antonio. I'm your host, Stephanie Reyes, President and CEO, joined by my co-host, local policy expert, Rob Killen. Let's break some ground. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Ground SA, coming to you from the IBC Bank studio. Today's episode is sponsored by Port San Antonio. Our guest is Jim Perschbach, President and CEO of Port San Antonio. And if you didn't know it, Port San Antonio is one of the most significant economic engines in our region and a national leader in aerospace, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing. And Jim's work sits right at the intersection of economic development, infrastructure, and long-term regional competitiveness. In this episode, Jim tells us about the evolution of the port and what's driving the continued growth, how San Antonio can position itself for the next generation of innovation and opportunity, and his fascination with crocodiles. Enjoy Jim Perschbach. All right, welcome to another episode of Breaking Ground SA. We have Jim Perschbach in the studio. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Jim, thank you so much for joining us. We're very, very excited about this episode.
I am thrilled to be here.
Wonderful. I know you're a busy man, so you being here means a lot to us. I want to get into, there's so much that you have going on, and we're going to dive in, but I want to learn about Jim. Mm-hmm. You know, who was Jim, young Jim?
Oh, young Jim was as boring and ugly as old Jim. What do you want to know?
Are you from here?
I am not from here. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina. My father was in Vietnam. My grandfather was with Eastern.
Okay.
And that was just a good place to be. He was out of Charlotte. And then moved around the world. I was in California, Utah, Tel Aviv, London, Pennsylvania. Lots of places.
Any of those your favorite?
No, they're all the same.
You love them all the same? I heard you really love Florida, though.
I love Florida.
What about Florida?
So there's many things. First of all, you've got, it's the only place on the planet where you have both extant alligators and crocodiles in the same ecosystem.
Oh.
And crocodilians are by far my favorite animal.
Oh, my God.
It is the home of the Florida death metal sound. Cannibal
I know you're
Corpse,
a
Obituary,
metalhead.
Cataclysm, Deicide, all coming out of there. But really, I spent a long time professionally going up and down the I-4 corridor. And everything from Tampa up to the Cape is a model of what San Antonio really should be striving for. It is based upon the same type of industry that we have here, which is the aerospace and defense and the space and the signals. And what they do tremendously well there is work together. There's something resembling a regional strategy, but it's different. The crescent of industry that comes off of UCF, the intersection between the military community down there in Tampa and the space and technology community in Orlando is just wonderful. But the one thing that strikes me about Orlando, you drive around that city, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the nice part of town or the less nice part of town, it is clean, the grass is cut, the trash is picked up off of the roads, and the roads make a level of sense. And it's just beautiful to see.
It's a great town. I go to Orlando 2 or 3 times a year with a teenage daughter, have for years and years and years. But my most embarrassing secret is I was not born in Texas. I was born in Miami, Florida. And so still have family back there. So I always like to get back there. But you're right. You talk about Orlando. It's always clean. And any restaurant you go to, they understand that they are a tourist-driven economy, and they're friendly. They get it. And no matter where you go, people are friendly and helpful. And it's amazing how much they understand how important all the industries are and welcoming to visitors.
Absolutely.
So alligators? You
I
like
love
alligators?
all crocodilians.
Really? Do you go up there to see these crocodiles? Are there activities to go
You
in?
ever been to Gatorland?
I have not.
If you're ever in Orlando and you're down Orange Blossom Trail, drop by Gatorland. Tell Savannah that Jim sent you.
Oh, you know the staff.
So it is wonderful. They'll let you feed the alligators, which are just Labrador retrievers. They're the sweetest things on earth. They've got a collection of Cuban crocodiles, which are the most terrestrial and hunt in packs. They're like the velociraptors of the crocodilian worlds.
Interesting.
They've got some saltwater crocodiles, which are huge and nasty. They've got the Nile crocodiles. They've got everything you ever wanted to see.
So I'm going to say that's a hard no for me, Jim. I have a phobia. I'm terrified of any kind of lizard, small, large. When I take the kiddos to the zoo, I let them go into the amphibian area alone. I wait outside.
She can't even watch Jurassic Park.
I can't. So yeah, that's a hard no for me. But I love that you're so passionate about it.
You want passion. One of the things, Savannah, her real name is Heather Moan, and she did a TED Talk back around the pandemic, which is just wonderful, about how people look at alligators and crocodiles and view them as nasty, but it's really pretty privilege. Because we think about tigers and sharks and bears as being cute and cuddly, and they are mean and nasty.
That's true.
Crocodilians are birds. They and birds are the only living archosaurs that survived the extinction. They raise their children, and as long as you don't mess with them, they don't mess with you. Really, all they want to do is sit by the pool and wait for food to come by. And isn't that the life we all want?
Yes, it is.
Now I expect the next announcement coming out of Port San Antonio is a crocodile farm.
Right.
I would love to have some I remember Henry Cisneros showing me around the Arboretum and getting fussy with me, and I kept asking him if he was going to put some alligators into the pond there.
Hey, that's an idea for the future plans.
I like that.
So when you were young, is this what you wanted to do when you were young then? Something to do with alligators?
No. So I didn't know what I wanted to do as a young kid. There were a couple of things. One, I knew about Kelly Air Force Base and the work that is done here in San Antonio before I could find San Antonio on a map. And growing up, I absolutely adored airplanes. I could tell you everything about airplanes. Truly, one of my earliest memories is the 727 logo on the window shade. And I don't think I was more than a year plus old just
Really?
looking at that thing. It was a circuitous road. Coming out of college, I had a job offer to go to Disney in France.
Okay.
I spoke French. I had an economics and public policy degree. I was ready to go and do that and wound up making a mistake and going to law school. Wound up in the lawyer's life. Thankfully, Bracewell and Tullis got me hooked up. Wound up with Boeing becoming my largest client. It's what brought me here to San Antonio, and life is good.
When was that? What year did you come down?
I came here March of 2005.
Okay.
Lived in an extended stay hotel. Moved every week, would drive back and forth to Corpus Christi.
Why Corpus?
Because that's where I was living at the time.
Okay. And were you married at the time?
I was married.
Family? Everyone was living in Corpus Christi?
We only had one kid at the time.
Okay.
Two, I lied.
Well, you're not the first recovering lawyer / developer on this show. So we started off with Randy Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he wasn't the only one.
He's not the only one.
And there's quite a bit of you guys. You're the only one who's holding it down.
I like being a lawyer.
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay, so then where did you go to college?
George Washington University.
Where'd you go to law school?
University of Houston Law Center.
Okay, very cool.
All right.
So you're at Port San Antonio, you're working for Boeing, and then how did you pivot over to Port San Antonio?
So I was actually at a law firm called Bracewell. I was never actually employed by Boeing.
Okay.
And I would drive down. I had several clients down at the port. And I would get very, very frustrated because you go down there and the work that is done on that campus and around that campus is some of the most important work being done on this planet. And it is surrounded by some of the most underserved and forgotten about communities in the state and, for that matter, in the country. And I would come back and I would get tremendously frustrated because all of the discussions that I heard were about other parts of town. They were never about how we can really build that bridge into the communities. And I complained about it and complained about it. And Tullis and Joe Cryer and others said, if you're going to keep complaining about this stuff, go do something about it.
Yeah.
So I jumped over there doing what they called business development, but it was really working with the industry sector. And then kept pushing and pushing and pushing and being obnoxious, and eventually got this job.
Squeaky wheel.
Squeaky wheel.
And so I remember when that was. I was over at the chamber at the time, and I feel like there were a lot of great candidates. What do you think stood out most to get you the job?
I think it was a combination of being shockingly unpleasant and the connections that I've gotten to the aerospace and defense industry. You see, here's the challenge, and for San Antonio, it is a tremendous opportunity that we're not taking advantage of right now. The challenges that we have as a community, the massive poverty, which is driven by social determinants, the underinvestment in food, pharmaceutical, and healthcare access, the underinvestment in infrastructure that serves those communities, the utility infrastructure and the social infrastructure, is not only keeping those communities challenged, but it's keeping the industries that we have challenged. You flip over to the military, and childcare is really one of the biggest stressors that they have on recruiting and retention, particularly of the non-kinetic missions, which are so vitally important in our modern warfare. And on the corporate side, when you've got childcare that's costing $15,000, $16,000 a year,
Yeah.
and hitting families earlier than they can possibly get it, save money for it, not get it, what you're finding is you can really solve those problems. And if you solve it and you amenitize the port campus, not that differently from what Graham is talking about and Randy's talking about doing with the baseball stadium and Peter's talking about doing with the basketball arena, then you can drive revenue into that campus. You can drive demand. And the salutary benefit is that you start addressing those social determinants, which not only makes the area nicer for the people who are going to come in and pay us rapacious rent, but it starts to address those barriers that people have to going to get the jobs. And at the end of the day, what that's doing is that is driving the wage growth up. And in driving the wage growth up, we get to where we need to be as a community, which is not putting more and more of the burden on an increasingly small segment of the population that is paying for those services.
Yeah. So for those viewers and listeners who are unfamiliar with the story of Port San Antonio, let's talk about the history from the very beginning. What, and then we'll pivot over to how you have the very exciting role of kind of getting that thing developed into an amazing vision that you have. But what's the backstory with Port San Antonio?
So the backstory, how much you going to let me talk about this?
Oh,
how long you want to hear me babble? In 1910, we as a society had no idea what we were going to do with airplanes. And the military picked this guy named Ben Falloy, who was a young lieutenant. They purchased a Wright Flyer 3. Do you remember the Wright Flyer 3? It had no wheels on it. Airplanes landed on skids. It was a somewhat modernized version of the original Wright Flyer.
Okay.
And they bought that, and they had it shipped out on a train to San Antonio, and they sent him to Fort Sam Houston. And on March 2nd, 1910, with no pilot training, just correspondence training, he took off, flew back, and landed on the parade field. Took off again, crashed on the parade field.
Oh, no.
That invented landing gear. He went down to the carriage shop and got some wheels and stuck it on the airplane. He put some seat belts on the airplane. And it was the first ever appropriation for the maintenance, repair, or overhaul of a military asset.
Okay.
Then, as a nation, we started to see that airplanes might have a future. We didn't quite know what it was. So the Chamber of Commerce got together a whole bunch of land down there at the old Vanderwally Farms on the southwest side of San Antonio. It was out in the middle of nowhere at the time. And gifted that over to the United States Army to build the first purpose-built military installation. And over the years, one of the things I absolutely love about the port and Kelly is I will drive people around and show you all the reasons that nobody in their right mind would build an air installation the way Kelly is built. And the reason for that is that everything was happening as Kelly was being built. So instead of building the real estate around a known industry, you were building the real estate while you were figuring things out. There were periods that we were working on reciprocating engines, radial engines, turbofan engines, all in the same location. That you had jets and space-aged aircraft working along with aircraft from the 1920s and 1930s, all going through the same site. And so many things that we take for granted in aviation today were developed here in San Antonio. The way that airplanes fly and land at any airport, anywhere in the world, instrument flight rules, was developed by Acker and Crane here in San Antonio.
That's so cool.
I'm going to miss the date, but I think it was the 1930s. The pressurized engine case that you use to transport an engine after maintenance was developed here in San Antonio.
Very cool.
The first Academy Award winning film filmed here in San Antonio Randolph Airfield.
What was it called?
It was called Wings. But it was about our, of course, we didn't have an Air Force back then. It was the Army Air Corps. But it was done here in San Antonio. So we have a long history with military aviation from an invention standpoint, but even from a pop culture standpoint.
Very true.
Very cool. So with all of that history, with what you want to do in the future, how do you preserve that history of the military?
So there's no history that we need to preserve because it's right here today. We have two really big drivers economically in this community. Both of them arise out of the military complex. There is the military health industry, which is massive and I know very little about, except for the fact I keep having to go through all those scans. And then there is the intersection of the signals, aviation, space that is right here. And we've never lost that. That's been here since 1917. The challenge is making sure that we grow that. So one of the things that the mayor has asked us to do with this economic security advisory group is figure out how we can focus on things like artificial intelligence and quantum, space manufacturing, and healthcare. And the trite answer is, if you look at it, every city on earth is trying to do that. And we don't have a Stanford here or an MIT, so it's hard to say you're just going to create that industry out of whole cloth. It's the application of those technologies into what we do. People, they laugh at me less than they once did when I talk about flying cars and flying taxis and advanced air mobility. But at its core, what that is about taking what Acker and Crane did almost 100 years ago and modernizing it through the application of artificial intelligence and common software platforms so that we can take the same physical space but use it more efficiently. I don't know if that window looks out at the airport or not, but if you look there,
Yes.
It does.
we have a crosswind runway at San Antonio International. The city will get fussy with me for this, but it's okay. 422 and 13 right, 31 left are the two commercial runways that we have.
Okay.
If you depart out 4, you're going to interfere with the traffic coming in and out of Randolph. But that's only because of the massive separation that is required. And what is being done under this advanced air mobility and airspace deconfliction is to better utilize that airspace. So instead of having to drop somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion on a new runway, you can use that runway more safely, more efficiently, and more effectively, and wait until we grow the traffic to actually justify putting that new runway in place. And it's that level of being able to save money on infrastructure, redirect that money into readiness or lethality if we're talking in a military environment, operations or mission if we're talking about a corporate environment, is where we really have the opportunity as a community to grow and shine.
Stephanie and I were both at the San Antonio Mobility Coalition State of Aviation event recently.
Great event.
Great event, and again, great host, great facility as well. And hopefully we'll take a few minutes later to talk about what you've done with that facility, not just for hosting really cool lunches, but concerts and things like that. But I'm just, every time I see a presentation, every time I hear you speak, I'm just really impressed by all of the new technology, all of the cool things that I wish everybody in San Antonio knew was happening. So could you take a few minutes just to talk about all the cool, fun stuff?
Yeah, so there is a ton of fun stuff, and I'm ashamed to say there's a lot of it in San Antonio that I know very little about, all the healthcare stuff that's going on. But if you want to talk on the technology side, Plus One Robotics is a local startup. They wanted to take a combination of computer vision, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and sensors integration, put that on the back of industrial robots, because they recognized there was an opportunity in e-commerce. Robots are blind and dumb and stupid, and they are really difficult to reprogram, and they're really persnickety. So if you look at an industrial operation of robots like Toyota, they bring in the mechatronics people to babysit these robots. If you look at an attraction that's essentially a motion robot, like some of the Disney and Universal attractions, they break down quite frequently because you get a little bit off of track and you have to stop and work everything.
Okay.
What was so fascinating about the Plus One guys is their visibility into an application was e-commerce. They knew nothing about some military applications, orbital manufacturing, lunar manufacturing, ultimately Martian manufacturing. But by bringing them down, renting to them when nobody in their right mind would have leased to these guys, they had no credit, they had no money. You know, we took a flyer on this and put them in an old classroom and garage. And now they've got the better part of a 100,000 square foot facility and 9 figures in funding.
Wow.
It's because those applications, when people see it, become something that you can bring out. If you can get a robot operating in an uncontrolled environment, then you can start doing some amazing things with that. Knight Aerospace, which is not a startup, but it's a second stage company, for years was doing ground handling equipment and relatively pedestrian inserts into airplanes. Some cargo capabilities, some passenger carrying capabilities. And what Bianca got them doing was that intersection of healthcare. So now you have a flying hospital module.
That's amazing.
That can be rolled in and out of the back of any broke down cargo airplane. And all this stuff, in retrospect, are things that seem so shockingly simple, but it takes that combination of people who understand the industry that you're trying to disrupt and have the ability to bring some disruption and that chocolate and peanut butter together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we have in San Antonio that we need to foster.
How did that happen? I mean, did you sound crazy to people when you said, look, I have the foresight, this is going to turn into something really great? How did you convince others to jump on board? And was there a lot of hesitation?
There was a ton of hesitation. So in the years I've been with the port, people have tried to run me out of that place. I have been called stupid and an idiot and fantastical. And now, thanks to the comptroller's office, I have a report card.
Okay.
You see, when I got this job, the comptroller coincidentally ran an economic study on us and our competitors around the state.
You didn't call for that.
We didn't call for it. They just do it naturally because they consider it a port, even though we're not a port.
Okay.
So they track it for the state. And they gave me a report card last year, September 19th. And in that time, our economic output has grown to $20 billion. It's a 256% increase.
That's great.
Our contribution to the GDP has grown 205%. It's now $10.6 billion.
Over what time period?
Over the 6 years that I sat in that job.
Oh, congratulations.
We have grown our total revenues, I think 118%, our net operating income 109, 110%. Some of these numbers I don't remember off the top of my head. Our net position has grown dramatically. We're well into the 9 figures right now. We've grown our occupancy on the campus from 90% to 96% over about 11 million square feet of managed space, while adding 800,000 square feet. And our office rents have grown 51%.
Wow.
We have tilt wall, 3-story office buildings where people are paying a $44 a square foot base rent,
Wow.
base triple net down there, with 0% vacancy in our offices. And I go back to when I first got this. I wanted to build that Tech 1 building. It was $19 million. And they brought in real estate professionals and finance professionals who all said the same thing. Nobody will ever lease an office. We had to get, I think, $20 a square foot base rent to make that building work. And they said, it will never happen. It will bankrupt the port. We fully leased that building in 6 months. The Tech 2 office building, that one was $50 million. It's the 5-story building across the street. They trusted me a little bit more, but they said, Jim, you need to go and get 50% pre-leasing on that building. And I said, it is never going to happen.
Right.
I cannot get any pre-leasing, but you authorize this building today, and I will have it leased in a week.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
And through it's certainly not beauty. I think it's just wearing people down.
Whatever works.
They agreed to sign off on launching the building. Next day, I flew up to my high school reunion, and I had the guy working the desk at the extended stay countersign or witness my signature on a lease for 50% of that building.
Wow.
And this is not because I'm a charming individual. It is because the military, which is a big driver, wants to have their commercial and academic sector close to them.
Sure.
And if you have a bona fide building that can do that work, then you've got a unicorn. The challenge is people keep putting these requirements on things that don't make a whole lot of sense. And it's a frustration that comes to me. See, even though I was a lawyer, my career was largely on military commercial derivative aircraft. And military commercial derivative aircraft are a really, really interesting integration of two complex systems that don't work. The idea is that for an airplane like what they call Air Force One, or a KC-10 or a KC-46, instead of requiring the manufacturer to develop a military spec for everything, essentially a different supply chain book, a different maintenance manual, a different operating rule, you simply use the civilian commercial application. And under a memorandum of agreement between the Department of Transportation and the Department of War, the FAA rules become the rules. They just have no binding authority. So you can't fine or sanction or criminally charge the Air Force for not complying with
No
them.
teeth at all.
But they follow it because it's a whole lot cheaper than doing it.
Mm.
At its core, the experiment that we are running is taking some things that have been done within this military industrial complex, looking at the lessons learned. And right now, I think the best military industrial research campus in the world is Cummings Research Park, which is in Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
There is a University of Alabama campus there, University of Alabama at Huntsville. There's a retail district, which is a mall. It's anybody in your group would understand what it looks like. And then you have every space and missile contractor on Earth and a whole bunch of 2 to 5 story 1980s looking tilt wall office buildings. So there is tremendous intersection and interplay between the academic community and the commercial community. There's a place where they can intersect. There's a reason for people to come there, so you don't get what a lot of these parks have, which is 9 to 5 during the weekdays. Everybody's there, and then it clears out, and nobody's there on the weekends or in the evenings. But the Arsenal is about 1.25 miles down the street. You got to cross a highway. You got to go 1.25 miles down. You have to go through a gate. And the net effect is they may as well be in a different zip code, a different state. You just don't get that intersection. Yeah. What we're trying to do, if you look at our campus, is shrink that even further. So you have a force-protected, classified military complex, and all you have to do is walk across a pedestrian bridge, and then you have the hotels, the restaurants, the office buildings, the academic sectors. And what this does is not only increase the quality of life for both sides, the community side and the military side, it dramatically reduces the cost that the military needs to spend, because now you're not building an asset that is only military and having an only civilian asset right across the street. But the biggest benefit is this challenge that we have, not just in the military, but throughout our technology sector. If you're I'm going to pick it out of the wing, the 67th Wing, which is one of our cyber operations wings here in San Antonio, and you need a new tool. Tyler Folse, who's this nuclear guy on YouTube, would criticize everything I'm about to say because it's oversimplified, but run with me. You're going to pick up the phone, you're going to call Hanscom up in Massachusetts, and they're going to launch an R&D effort. Then they're going to call Wright-Patterson, and they're going to launch a pre-production effort. And then they're going to call Tinker, and they're going to launch the production effort, and then it's going to get delivered to you here in San Antonio, and inevitably, there's something you don't like about it, so the process starts all over again. What you've done is you've spread out your entire industrial base, your entire supply chain. What this allows us to do is you bring everybody close together. You shorten those chains. It doesn't mean that you close down Hanscom or Wright-Patterson or Tinker. It simply means you bring people from those locations. From the user's perspective, you are shortening the time and the cost of that acquisition cycle. From the community's perspective, we are bringing in people who are attracting and creating the types of jobs that we want in this community well into the six figures. And the proof of this, years ago, before that comptroller study, it was hard for me to say it.
Sure.
Now what I do is I say, look, average wage on our campus, $111,000.
Is it really?
And that's a real $111,000. That's not the Jetty used economic impact. This is what we're doing because we're applying for tax incentives. That's a real $111,000. The disposable income coming out of our campus has gone from 1.7 to 5.6 billion.
Wow.
And it is that growth because we're bringing in the types of jobs. Our campus is 1,900 acres. It generates about 6% of the 9-county MSA's GDP.
That's impressive.
It is tremendously impressive. And we're making strides. The reason that our total revenue outstrips our net operating income growth is very intentional. We are taking a lot of our money and plowing it into educational programs, community programs that we're trying to grow the areas around us, as well as, and this is one of my complaints in the world, physical and social infrastructure. Standard Aero, which is one of the world's largest aerospace third-party companies. They do everything from assemble jet engines to overhaul jet engines to work on business jets and helicopters. Has their second largest operation on the planet at Port San Antonio.
Wow.
And it wasn't always their second largest operation. They have created a program for which they just won an award with Workforce Solutions Alamo, but they need more awards for it. In 12 weeks, if you have a level of technical aptitude, which really means you can build a Lego set, they will bring you over. They will train you so that you can actually be on their shop floor.
Wow.
During that entire time, you're getting paid. You're then getting paid a benefits package, and you get a raise once you're on the shop floor. And what that has done is dramatically shorten the barrier to entry for people getting into aircraft maintenance. What I love about aircraft maintenance, in 2015, I gave a speech at the chamber, and I almost got run out of town for it. I've still got it. In fact, I've shared it with people, where it says we need to stop calling San Antonio a cheap place to do business. And it talked about how if you grow what I called at the time nose to tail, those capabilities, we will dramatically accelerate our industry.
This was when?
This was 2015.
Okay.
It was, I think, July of 2015, because I gave that speech at the chamber. We were hosting with the Aerospace Committee a guy from Aviation Week who came in and gave the update. Then we took him down and showed him Boeing and Lockheed and Standard Aero. Next day I took off for Disney World. Mayhem ensued. Chamber was very upset with me.
Oh.
They did not like that presentation. But here's the issue. What we have done in San Antonio, I don't think maliciously, I think we've just fallen into this trap, is we are incentivizing jobs that are lower paying and have lower upward mobility. We then incentivize housing to support those jobs, all of which is taking revenue out of the public sector. And in many cases, it's transferring those tax burdens onto an increasingly smaller segment of the population. I've forgotten more about my economics degree than I knew, and I didn't know much, but that's not sustainable. If you look at the aviation industry, particularly the sustainment part, it's a really, really compelling industry. The upward mobility is really, really high. There are people with mechanics degrees who are making well into the six figures, $500,000-$600,000 a year. They're rare, but it's because they have enough skill, enough capability that they can essentially sonogram, X-ray an airplane and know whether you need to cut that airplane open or not just from reading that. The challenge is, because aviation is a low volume, high value, Jim's classification, as compared to traditional manufacturing, what Toyota does is low value, high volume. They're going to make more trucks in a couple of weeks than Boeing will make airplanes in a century. The price points are different. The labor points are different. There's a company here at the airport called Singapore Technologies. It's a branch of one of the largest and most important aviation sustainment companies on earth. They do very commoditized work. There's another one over here called Cessna Citation Service Center that work on business jets largely for Mexican nationals and people in the southern United States. They have to pay less than what Boeing can pay because Boeing is working on really, really complex airplanes doing really, really complex work. And frankly, price points are different. They function as a spring and reservoir of talent.
Okay.
So when Boeing has a trough and they have to furlough some people, instead of those people picking up like traveling nurses and leaving to another state,
Right.
they go over there. When somebody graduates out, when they want to make more money than they can make with somebody working on simpler airplanes or more commoditized work,
They go to Boeing.
they've now built up where they can go to Boeing. And that becomes a tremendously symbiotic industry. You can actually do it out of a Toyota. You can do it out of an HEB. But we need to be building that pipeline of talent and incentivizing it. And the way we incentivize it, Jim's view of the world, should not be public money that goes to the private sector exclusively. So one of the things that we've done at the port, and I've stolen this partially shamelessly from Disney and partially shamelessly from United and American and Delta, is not new. It's using it as loss leaders. And it goes back to that 2015 presentation. There are some businesses, some capabilities, some things that we want at the port, and we will discount that beyond belief. Some cases we'll take a loss on it. And the reason for that is that makes us more attractive to the people that we really, really want.
Sure.
You watch this guy, Doug Horner. He's got a YouTube channel called Benzes and Bow Ties.
I haven't.
No,
I haven't. I'm going to
no.
add it to the list.
You need to. Good looking dude, wears a bow tie. He's the most interesting car sales influencer I've ever seen. You know the G-Wagons, the Mercedes G-Wagons?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why anybody in their right mind buys those things, but
I'm not a
people do.
fan either. I'm not a fan either.
A G63 AMG is an outrageous sticker price, and the dealers compete on markups. So you go in there and they charge you $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 for markup. What Benzes and Bow Ties does, Mercedes-Benz of North Olmsted, he will sell it to you at MSRP. But there is a huge catch.
What's the catch?
You have to already own a G63
Okay.
that you have purchased from Mercedes-Benz of North Olmsted. And to do that, you have to trade in a G550. So what he is building up is not only repeat customers, but he is building a constant flipping of inventory. So he sells a G550, gets a used G550 back in exchange for a used G63, sells the G63, sells a brand new G63 AMG at MSRP. And what he has done is he has traded going out and trying to compete on seeing how much you can maximize that markup
Yeah.
by having a built-in customer base.
Smart.
This is the same nonsense that I said in that 2015 speech, just much more wonderfully articulated.
Were you wearing a bow tie?
I was not wearing a bow
That was the
tie.
problem, Jim. That was the problem.
But our challenge back then was you had other states, primarily the Gulf Coast Aviation Alliance, Alabama, Florida, who were putting 50, 75% of the cost of a facility onto the public trial. Alabama was giving not only the company exemptions from taxes, but they were giving the employees exemptions from income taxes for 5 or 10 years. And they were coming up with 9-figure incentives that we could never possibly compete with. And my thesis back then was we don't need to do that. What we need to do is to bring in the capabilities that make our people more competitive, treat this like a business. And if we treat it like a business, then what we're going to do is we're going to use the revenue capture strategies, the business capture strategies to grow our segment. What has since struck me as I've become more sophisticated and talk to people is when people say government doesn't think like a business, they're right, but it's not necessarily government's fault. You see, government has to follow GASB, the Government Accounting Standards Board.
Okay.
Right.
The private sector follows FASB. The biggest differentiator, which is really focused on real estate, is that a private sector real estate owner is going to view that real estate as an asset. They are going to invest in that asset. You're going to be penalized if you don't. You're going to be rewarded if you do.
Mm-hmm.
On the public sector, they don't think that way. Money is guaranteed. It comes in tax bases. Everything is an expense. So if you don't maintain a building, you are rewarded. You are penalized for maintaining a building. The Department of the Air Force is $45, $50 billion behind on maintaining their assets. It's not sustainable. Look at any public sector entity out there.
Yeah.
So we've looked at our finances. Any dollar that we use for a revenue generating project, TI, leases, and we use TI shamelessly as that differentiator when it comes to win some business, comes back to us as an 8% return. Conversely, and that's an average, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but we've been doing about 8% return on our TI.
Not bad.
If we have to put that money into streets and parking and other stuff, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's wasted. Right now, we're doing a streets project that's going to cost us $42 million. $27 million of that is coming out of the port. $15 million is coming out of the city's bond project. That is $27 million that we don't have to go and cut a deal.
Sure.
Here's an immediate challenge. We have added 9,000 jobs on our campus in 6 years with 0 public incentives.
That's great.
And they're in the 6 figures. You can probably figure out who I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
There is a company that's added 4,000 jobs, done 9 figures of investment. Nobody's done a ribbon cutting, talked about them. They don't show up in anybody's discussions. If that had happened and was brought in, you'd have the governor and the senators and probably the president showing up and taking credit for it. Here's a practical problem. You add 9,000 people, you need parking. You need streets that work.
Well, let's go back. Why do you think that was the case? Why not the ribbon cutting? Why not the big, flashy, show?
Because we are not, and when I say we, this is a collective we, the systems are not set up to grow things organically. We have created economic development strategies, rules, methodologies that are based around something where a politician, an economic development agency, a city, a developer can claim credit for it because it's easy, it's definable, it's splashy, and it comes in and it happens all at once. The stuff we've had has been this kind of incremental business growth.
Got it.
That's not sexy and easy to put your hands on. It's harder to do. And because of that, it's hard for people to claim credit for it. It's hard to recognize it. And then we have another problem in the aerospace industry. I am George Clooney amongst airplane people. If any of us had social skills, we wouldn't be in the airplane business. But the problem, getting back to this, is when I look around the city, and for this, I give the mayor tremendous credit. There are a lot of things that we need to do in this city. I am a big supporter of Project Marvel. I'm a big supporter of the baseball stadium. I'm a big supporter of a lot of this stuff. But if you overinvest in those areas, which I put on the demand side of the equation, the demand of the finances, and you underinvest in where you're actually driving the revenue and you're driving the tax base, you're not going to be able to succeed on either part. You're just not going to grow enough business. Your costs are going to exceed your revenue. So for those streets, if there were $27 million that I could put in at an 8% return, that's $27 million that we can effectively subsidize. We can start to work some amazing deals. Imagine what you can do on a 50-year lease with $27 million and a lot of TI.
Jim, I appreciate you saying that. I remember the breakfast a few weeks ago, hearing the story of those thousands of jobs with not a single headline.
Right.
No recognition of that. And we have, I think, in San Antonio, historically, done a terrible job with our existing businesses, helping them grow. And we've lost corporate headquarters because of that. Folks have moved other places because, we'll get the new plant, but we won't water it, right? It's like, look at this shiny new object, and we get excited about, look, we're going to create 500 jobs or 1,000 jobs. And the story of the company with these thousands and thousands of jobs that has continued to grow, continue to invest, and we're not putting the kind of resources behind it. It's something, for me personally, the economic development work that we do at our firm is really frustrating to hear. And I'm glad that you were beating the drum about this. I think we all need to collectively beat the drum a little bit more. And the challenge that you talk about, and you talked a little bit at the beginning, childcare in terms of workforce development, that's critically important. But infrastructure and finding the money for infrastructure like this shouldn't be that hard.
So what do we do, Jim? What do we do about this?
So I think a lot of it is what y'all are doing and what Real Estate Council's doing and ULI's doing. Is bringing that, I don't want to call sense to the table, but that different viewpoint.
Sure.
That A developer is going to look at something and say, I need to get this asset making money. If it's not making money, it doesn't work for us. We've got some resources in town that become unicorns that deserve more investment. Selfishly, I'll use the port, but take it away from the port and look at what we're doing with healthcare.
Yeah.
There is tremendous opportunity to grow that healthcare sector. I am very excited about the potential. I think the Opportunity Zone program has had a ton of flaws, but I think the Opportunity Zone funding program under version 2.0, with the ability to help seed the ground to put healthcare clinics into parts of our community that currently don't have healthcare, is a really interesting and really compelling look at this. We need to solve those childcare issues. We need to solve the food desert issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then fundamentally, we need to solve this transportation infrastructure issue. There is an airplane that's under development right now. It's called the Electra Aero. And I am the biggest advocate of the Electra Aero on this planet. It burns jet fuel to create electricity, just like a diesel electric locomotive. And so it is powering its rotors electrically, makes them shockingly quiet. Is a fixed wing airplane with ultra short takeoff and landing capabilities. It can land, take off in 75, 150 feet. That airplane is relatively easily scalable up. I don't know if this is what they're looking at doing or not doing, but I am fascinated by it. Because our challenge in San Antonio and virtually any other city in this country is if you have to build massive parking and access infrastructure, it's billions of dollars. And Marvel on its best day is probably 200 nights a year.
Yeah.
If you can shrink that and you have the ability to not have everybody flying from point to point, but have a gigantic park and ride located where land is cheap and easy to access, and then a relatively central point, and these aircraft become flying buses or flying trains, you are saving billions of dollars in capital infrastructure and maintenance, as well as all the adverse impact of trying to build and maintain that stuff. And more important, you can take the area that's being developed, and instead of using it for non-revenue generating or lower revenue generating projects, you can use it for high value.
I think this concept is really cool. I've seen your videos of these air taxis, but how do you shake people saying, I'm not going to get in that thing?
Why wouldn't you get in it? This one has 2 pilots up front. It flies under conventional methodology. It's really no different than hopping in a small regional aircraft. In fact, it's going to be more pleasant because you're not even going that high.
Yeah. Because some people will say, I have fear of getting in a helicopter.
Helicopters. So one of the challenges that we've got, there's a guy that blows up my LinkedIn all the time. I won't call him out here because he's going to do it more, but he's not wrong. He criticizes the eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing, because going vertical and takeoff and landing is a massive energy waster.
Okay.
And you're probably not scalable with that. That's one of the reasons I'm so fascinated by Electra and Beta and even Whisk, is because you put in that fixed wing capability and you shrink it. But let's say you can't necessarily get people into the mix. Let's say you want to do it with just cargo. A challenge that I think we have from talking to the people in the grocery industry is their margins are such, they really need these massive mega stores and these massive distributions because it's really a supply chain warehousing type operation. That's hard to duplicate where people don't have access to those stores. So think about it like an Uber Eats or a Instacart type operation. You build these gigantic grocery stores with gigantic, what does HEB call that thing that people that have friends use? I like going through the store because I don't have any friends. Curbside pickup or whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you have an airplane like an Electra or like a Beta or like a Whisk that is flying those groceries to a central distribution point.
By a pilot or they're autonomous?
Could be either way,
Okay.
right? Because now you don't have to worry about people getting into it, so that ick factor of I don't want to get in an autonomous airplane is limited.
Yeah.
But you have shortened that, whether it's an urban area that you just can't justify building that massive grocery store, or what we have all throughout of Texas, where you get right outside of San Antonio and you're in the countryside real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is that goes a long way toward those social determinant factors. The diseases that we have in San Antonio are diseases that come from lack of maintenance, lack of early access to health care, lack of good food. I eat garbage, but I'm old and it doesn't matter. Address that, and you go a long way toward having a workforce that can then be trained and educated to do what we need to do in the future.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you're still worried about those flying Waymos, right?
Yes. So have you heard this concern? Security.
Mm-hmm.
If these things are flying over people's residences,
Right.
or, their fear, what's looking at me, or who, is that an issue?
Sure, it's an issue, but the wonderful thing about human beings is we see ghosts behind everything. The way this is probably going to shake out is in the Class X-ray airspace, Class X airspace, which is what SkyGrid, and I'm a big fan of SkyGrid, is calling the AAM operations area.
What is SkyGrid for us?
SkyGrid is a Boeing venture company. It's really a software company that is developing a suite of software and sensor technologies that can be used toward the development of a modernized air system that allows the more efficient utilization of airspace, particularly in low altitude and complex space,
Got it. Okay.
where you don't fly right now. So to answer your question, hopefully not in a long-winded way, there will still be a level of areas being carved out. But if your concern is, and I hear this all the time, I don't want somebody listening to me, don't be walking around with a phone
Right.
and having an Alexa in your house. And
Right.
don't use a TV. There's more stuff taking your real data
Yeah.
than
Someone's
somebody
listening
flying an
all the
aircraft over
time.
your house.
Everywhere.
Let me ask a question before we wrap up.
Oh, we were far from wrapping up,
good.
Rob.
Well, good. We've got time. Off topic on aviation, though. This is you've got an event facility down there. My daughter is a huge K-pop fan. For those listeners who don't know, that is Korean pop music. So there are probably people listening to this who don't know what K-pop is. Huge fan. She went to one of the K-pop concerts, raved about not just the concert itself, but the facility. You're a music guy. You love music. Talk about some of the concerts you've had down there, what you've got coming up.
So we've had Parkway Drive, whom I love, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary's been there, Anthrax has been there. We've had K-pop and country and even Christian music. Armored MMA, where people put on suits of armor and attack each other with swords and everything else.
That I would go say.
Wrestling, WWE's minor league came down, did a show. And it's, one of the crazy things is when we were building that, I had people come and say, why are you building an entertainment center down there? And it was shocking to me because it's the same people who don't question why Randy wants entertainment in downtown. There are two things. One, there's 19,000 people working on that campus and thousands of people living around it who want access to it. It's a whole lot easier to get to for all the areas that are growing on the west side of San Antonio. But we need something that attracts people. The second reason is the real reason that I'm so adamant about doing that crazy office building. One of the things that government does and society does is it sends messages to people. And don't get me wrong, I am a big believer in having a vital downtown. But I am also a big believer in having a vital south side and west side and east side. And if the messages that we send are that because of the neighborhood where you live, where you grew up, because of the part of town where you work, isn't as important, you are sending the wrong message. You asked about Florida. One of the things I really, really admire about Florida is you can go a lot of different parts of Orlando. And yes, there's north side, south side, east side, west side, there's Winter Park, but it's a lot less pronounced. And in my mind, the best San Antonio is like a really good theme park. You may have a west side that has a different theme than an east side, a different theme than a south side or a north side. But the quality and the opportunities and the investment in infrastructure should be close to being the same. I'm never going to say being the same.
Right.
But one of the reasons I want to do that office building, one of the reasons we wanted to do the entertainment center, one of the reasons I'm just a massive advocate for putting physical infrastructure down there, is the people in that part of the community not only deserve it, but they deserve to be told they're met. And what we've been doing for a long, long time is silently telling people that they don't matter because of where they are. And it's not just a south and west side thing. We do it to people on the north side too. We do it to people on the east side. We do it to people in the northeast.
Yeah. What about housing? Is that a focus for you?
Yeah, and housing becomes tricky for two reasons at the port. First reason, we have F-16s doing training exercises. They're kind of loud.
Yeah.
The second reason, we have a lot of operations that are close to national security. And under general housing, the Fair Housing Act says we can't ask that really nice Iranian family any questions about what they're doing. And you talk about seeing ghosts, the national security people will automatically assume that an Iranian national setting up shop is setting up shop for a reason other than just moving here. And I'm not talking about Iranian immigrant, I'm talking about Iranian diplomat. So what we want to do is drive a strategy where the port becomes that central business type connection, and the neighborhoods around us, which are already neighborhoods, become that investment. One of the things I would love to see happen is an investment in the corridors around us, not on port property, that make them just as attractive. I took a boondoggle trip. I paid for it, but I had some of the people that work with me go with me to go see Epic Universe. One, because I wanted to get them on Stardust Racers.
Fun.
But the port's job is to be like that central universal working campus. It's a working movie studio. It's a working everything else. But with City Walk in California, more so than Florida, it connects into the community as well. So housing is important, but housing can't be directly adjacent to an F-16 training site, and it can't be directly adjacent to a highly classified fake name on the building operation.
But all of those jobs that you're creating, that will organically call for the need for more housing and hopefully an investment from the people that could make it happen. So when did you think, at what moment in time, was there a moment where you said, man, we're really doing something big here?
It was, so with Tech One, that first office building, getting that to actually work was proof that we can make this happen. That the government, if they have a bona fide facility, will start putting proximity requirements into their solicitations, that we can start to drive it. Being able to get Tech 2 going, fully leased up during COVID, was a next way to do it. And then the board going along with me on this somewhat fanciful Boeing Center thing. And here's something that I don't think gets enough attention. In the entire planet, the Boeing company has their name on one building that they don't own, and that's the Boeing Center.
It doesn't have the name on it. You're right.
There is no other stadium or arena or anything that they slap their name on. Their board of directors, their CEO all had to sign off on it. The first year that they had their name on it, they issue 2 annual reports every year. The stockholder annual report and their community engagement annual report. That was the cover of their community engagement annual report. Because bringing those kids through and providing that connectivity and telling people that you can achieve something. And this is not. Sometimes it gets said of, Jim, you're just talking about the underserved kids. There are kids living in Alamo Heights and the Dominion and Chavano Park who are also being told you can't achieve something.
Mm-hmm.
We had a young lady who went to Reagan High School who participated in 4 years of programs down at the port and is now in the San Antonio Aviation and Aerospace Hall of Fame
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, wow.
because of how excited she got about the space program. But I remember her saying on her own podcast that was the first time that somebody told her that a girl could do something, that there was really an opportunity for her. And that, more than anything else, is what we're trying to build. So the numbers and the finances are nice, but recognizing that we've built something that is actually providing a positive benefit is there too.
Love that. So you've traveled quite a bit. You've lived in a lot of places. You've traveled for work, economic development stuff. When you travel to all these places, has there been one place where you say, San Antonio needs to pay attention to this?
Orlando.
Going back to Orlando. Out of
Going back
everywhere
to
in the world,
Orlando.
it's back to Orlando.
We have this fascination of wanting to be all the glamour stuff. And San Antonio is a wonderful place. Sometimes I get accused of dogging on the locals. We have a lot more in common with Oklahoma City and Orlando and Huntsville than we do with Chicago and LA and New York. Here's what one of the things that really strikes me about Orlando, and it's a pet peeve of San Antonio. And first of all, I love the city's airport. I think our airport is a jewel. I do not love going into those bathrooms. And I went into a stall in the men's room in Concourse B one day, and there was 4 inches of dirty toilet paper all over the floor.
Oh. Is Jesus listening?
There, with great frequency, toilets are broken, urinals are broken, sinks are broken. You stand out at the Uber line, and there's flies and bees because the garbage hasn't been picked up. These are little things. We can build the fanciest thing we want to do, and it's not just the airport. You drive into downtown, and I know it's TxDOT, but you come off of 37 onto Commerce Street, and that, with great frequency, the grass isn't cut, it's not kept up clean.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the message that we're giving something.
Yeah.
You compare that to Orlando, which granted is plastic and everything else. It's clean. It's easy to access. And I think that's the lesson. So I said that. I've got a good friend. She was on city council. And I remember telling her about this and complaining about the airport. And she said, Jim, have you been in the women's room at the Boeing Center lately? And I said, no. And she said, well, you should, because the paper towel dispenser has been held together by duct tape for 2 wins.
Wow.
And I said, thank you. And I immediately called over there. So I'll point fingers at myself as well. One of the things we're trying to figure out at the port is how to improve the image. I think we need to do that in San Antonio. And I love San Antonio, but fixing the bathrooms and cleaning up the trash goes a long way toward changing the impression we're giving people.
So let's flip it. When you travel and come back, what is one thing that you're always proud of San Antonio for?
There are some things here in San Antonio where we are batting way, way, way above our weight. One of them, because I dumped on the airport, I will give the airport tremendous credit for. That is one of the most efficient and most effective operations of any airport in this country. And it way bats above its weight for what we have as a city. The ability to have these disparate groups, from the Real Estate Council to Greater SATX to the Chamber to the Hispanic Chamber, coming together and having conversations is vitally important. And that, I think, is helpful. The fact that people haven't run me out of town when I'm an ugly, unpleasant human being, my arrogance is exceeded only by my ugly, is really, it's really nice.
You're doing an amazing job. You're a visionary. Where does that come from? Are they experiences from traveling places?
Part of it's traveling places. Part of it is, so, you grow up, you move around a lot. You don't have friends. You don't have a social life. I've been fascinated by airlines and theme parks, crocodilians, and then the integration of systems. Disney used to be the best systems operator on the planet. And it was the same thing going back to Benzes and bow ties. They didn't sell alcohol in the theme parks. The legend was because Walt didn't want it. But really, what they were selling was this fantasy that when you go to the park, it's a family-friendly place. And they gave up short-term revenue to build up. You're going to come back 4 or 5 times as a family. Your kids are going to come back 4 or 5 times. Their kids are going to come back. And we're making a long-term investment. That systems mindset of what is ultimately going to make sense is where I think people really need to learn. If you look at United, and Delta does it too, there'll be a Porsche or BMW sitting at the end of the jet bridge, and that's for their global services passengers. You don't have to waste your time doing anything. They will take you and treat you like a superstar, and they are losing money doing that. But if you're a global services passenger, you're either really spending a fortune on them, or more likely, you control a corporate travel account. And there is a reason to give up that money. What I don't think any economic development strategy has ever really captured is a really good business capture and revenue development strategy of knowing when to give some money up so that you can maximize your profits long term. And that's why Benzes and bow ties, Doug Horner, I'm fascinated by that guy. He's so different from other car sales influencers who are talking about how you can maximize the back end, maximize the front end. And he's talking about there's some models he's going to incentivize out and sell at a loss. And there's some things he's going to hold on for dear life. But fundamentally, he's trying to build that repeat business.
Yeah. It's about thinking outside of the box. Okay, so we have a segment called Rapid Fire. Jim, first thing that comes to your mind with these, okay? Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee nauseates me, and I've never had an energy drink.
So then how do you get your energy for the day? You're just high on life. Got it. Okay. Best taco in San Antonio?
I don't like tacos.
Making these questions easy.
Man, if Port San Antonio had a walk-up song, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I'd like to say Vice Grip by Parkway Drive off the album Ire.
Okay. We got to include that in
There you go.
in the video here. First job ever?
First job ever, real job, or just what my mom had me doing?
No, real job.
My first ever real job was Red Lobster.
Red Lobster? You were a server? Cook?
No,
Host?
I was a busboy, and then I got put on as a host
Okay.
because they thought I was cute.
Oh,
I was not cute.
Cute and charming. Podcast, movie, or music on flights?
I have watched the greatest motion picture ever made,
Which is this?
Mad Max Fury Road,
Okay.
73 times. I have seen it over the Pacific, the Atlantic, over Canada, in multiple countries.
Interesting.
My record is watching it 3 times on one flight.
On one flight.
Wow. So 73 times. It's a good movie. I've seen it a couple times.
Great motion picture.
Okay. I got to put that on my list. If you weren't doing this, what career would you have?
I don't know. I'm pretty useless at most things. What I'd really love to do, though, would be at a theme park or an airline.
Okay. Did you ever want to be a pilot since you love airplanes so much?
I did for a little while, and then 2 things happened. One, they'd laugh at me if I tried to pass a first-class medical exam. And 2, the idea of glamour goes away pretty quick when you realize you're on call going back and forth all the time.
Yeah. Okay, here's one. Which is better? The Dirt I'm Buried In, The Eagle Has Landed, or Hall of Apocalypse?
Oh, you're talking Avatar.
I did my research, Jim.
So of those songs, The Dirt I'm Buried In.
Okay.
But if you really want to go into the Avatar catalog, Paint Me Red or Let It Burn
Okay.
off of the album Black Waltz.
Okay.
virtually anything from Dance Devil Dance, which does include the dirt I'm buried in.
Okay.
But Avatar is. How'd you find out about Avatar?
I do not share my research strategy. Did you see his face light up with these songs?
I saw that. He was very excited that you knew that.
Johannes is he's meatloaf with death metal capabilities.
Okay, this is the last one. One word to describe San Antonio's future.
Bright.
I like that.
I like that.
That's
very
a great way to end the episode. Thank you, Jim, for
Thanks
coming
for
in.
having me.
You have to come back soon. Keep us updated on all the progress.
Nobody ever wants me back.
You have an open invitation in here.
Jim, we appreciate you joining us in the IBC Bank studios.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next episode.
Make sure you click subscribe.